Señores oyentes de UFLA.
Saludos amigos, los invitamos a escuchar la mesa redonda de Roundtable, donde discutimos los temas del día, hablando de política, educación y otros temas, locales, regionales y mundiales, por USA la Radio.
Señores oyentes de UFLA Media, están escuchando la mesa redonda de Roundtable de la ciudad del amor fraternal, from the city of brotherly love. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Tenemos un invitado especial, John DUFFIN, y controlando la máquina digital, Danny Ramos. Buenos días, good morning.
Buenos días.
Good day.
Good day, ¿cómo estás?
It could be in the afternoon already.
Well, this part of the world,
it could be at
night. At least for me at this moment.
Yeah. It's funny, in this world we live in, I was watching a report from London.
Right.
And so it was already like 2:30 in the afternoon over there.
Oh.
And then I was watching one report from California, and it was only like 7 in the morning.
Exactly. It's the beauty of global. I have a couple of friends that have interviewed with me on the podcast that I have, and they're in Ireland. And so that's what I have to remember, that 5 hours ahead thing. Yeah, it's great that people are paying attention all day long.
It amazes me, John, how the way we are able to communicate now from one end of the world to the other in no time.
In no time.
Go ahead.
No, forgive me. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I remember coming from the world of broadcast advertising, where I was there for almost 30 years, and the importance of timed news, such as your 6 p.m. news and your 11 p.m. news, and how incredibly important it was. And people actually waited until 6 or 11 p.m. And obviously, nobody does that now, because you don't have to. And so everybody's plugged in all day long, every day.
The cable news network changed that whole situation, no?
Sure.
It used to be, we're dating ourselves here, John.
Right.
The 3 major networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, and we knew the anchor people. We,
Yep.
you know, Walter Cronkite was like a trusted grandfather for the whole country. Huntley Brinkley.
Yep.
They call it a report. Roger Mudd, people like that. Amazing.
The word they often used was trusted, too. You knew and you trusted. So if they said it, it must be true. Almost like the way that you trusted your doctor. Well, if the doctor said, or if Huntley and Brinkley said it, God, that makes me sound 150 years old. But it's just that sense of that was the word they always leveled with those anchors. Now it's personality and fame and numbers and ratings, and the immediacy. Like I said, you said cable news, and I'll add, look, I go to a website and I do it in real time, and I feel no compelling need to wait a second for you to tell me. I just Google the topic and then learn it. And I think that's one of the things that's changed so much. And it helps us too in terms of this. People are listening in virtually all day, all night long.
It does. It helps. I do the same thing. I just go around. And I like BBC, and I check their global coverage, because sometimes you discover things that normally we wouldn't. I mean, especially during the last 4 years, when we focused everything on Washington, everything on Trump.
Yep.
There were many events around the world that were neglected. You know.
Oh my God! I just touched my heart when you said that. I remember this wasn't 100 years ago, but it was a little while back. I remember, so they had, and she's still famous and relevant, Christine Yampaport, that would do global features, and she would be on 60 Minutes, for example.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And why I say that is, it's horrible to say, but I'll admit, I would be a little more distant when she would come on. Almost selfishly. She's talking about somewhere away from here. And so, because it's away from here, and I'm embarrassed to say, it didn't matter as much as here. And I can't believe that I was that like narrow and tunnel visioned at that time, realizing obviously everything affects everything.
But you're talking about the recent, like 4 years?
Yeah, yeah, even
Yeah.
10, like say maybe 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I remember I would almost be like, oh, this is somewhere that's
Well,
not here.
yeah, maybe because I was born outside this country, I've always been interested in news from other places.
Oh, and when I went to Univision, that's what helped me the most was that sense of you need to know, you have to be aware. It does matter, and that was the gift that I got. So 12 years ago, no, it's longer now. 14 years ago when I went to work with Univision. And for all the great experiences, that was the first one, which is you have to, everything matters, and it matters from everywhere. If it doesn't matter to you this moment, just give it time. It's going to matter to you soon.
Right. Well, we have all this covered with what happened in this country with this sort of fever that we went through for 4 years, and that attracted millions of people, sort of poisoned their minds with ideas that are not sensible. It's hard to believe that millions and millions of people bought into a philosophy that is destructive, anti-democratic, racist, xenophobic, well, you name it, everything wrong with it. And millions of people followed a man who believed all these things. And that's a very relevant point right now because we are one day away from a second impeachment for Donald Trump.
Yup, exactly. Hey, Fernando, I would say here's the thing that concerns me more, which is as you're saying it in terms of followed, believed, as if it was past tense. I know people, I don't have to go very far. We were just talking about paying more attention to global and inclusive matters. I don't have to go far in my circle to have people that still believe that
Yes.
still follow this, that are still biased and thinking that that's real and that there's something that will eventually be coming to light, which scares me even more.
Yeah. Well, I know a group here in Northeast Philadelphia, way up in the Northeast.
Right.
Relatives, so that in the second degree, relatives of other relatives.
Right.
And I'm not directly related to them, and thank God I don't know them. I just know who they are and what they think, and they are not your ignorant, toothless North Carolinians.
Yeah.
They are people with degrees, with a CPA, a lawyer. So these are educated people.
Yeah. That you might want to hang around with. That you may choose, if you didn't know that, you may choose to hang around with them. They may add light, humor, fun, whatever. But when you do know that now, at least for me, when I do know that, or I'm made aware of it, or on social media when you're following people and you read and hear things, that to me has become a deal breaker. Like, I won't maintain a relationship if the topic is the things that are just ridiculously false and ugly, like the fraud and all that. I just won't. I cut it off. I won't entertain the conversation. I cut it off.
Yeah. Anyway, so we can discuss this little topic more in depth, especially because there is a second impeachment coming up.
Yeah.
But there are other things, and some of them more pleasant. I don't know if you had a chance to see the Super Bowl.
I'm grateful to say, I guess one of the things with being quarantined is you get the opportunity to see every bit of it. So I saw everything up to and including the America the Beautiful national anthem and game and halftime show. So yeah, I'm great.
Yeah, that was great, right? The halftime show, it brings us back to Washington in a way because the poet laureate had a role in this Super Bowl. She's amazing, this girl.
Right. So I am embarrassed to say that before before this turn of events and before the inauguration, I didn't know who Amanda was. I'm embarrassed to say that. To say that she's so powerful and on top of it, so charismatic and easy and fun that it's, hey, they might have been better served having her, Amanda, at halftime rather than The Weeknd, who I felt like was perfectly fine, but with minimal engagement. Whereas you hear the poem and you're like, oh my God, I love her. She's great. She just has a sense of charisma that you force yourself to pay attention. She literally grabs you by the shirt.
Absolutely.
Get away with her charisma. And it's like, you got to listen to me, and you want to.
She's so poised for a young person with
Yeah. And she's, like I said, it's you make look. I used to turn off to poetry. It was like, oh, a poem. But she has such amazing depth of her knowledge, of experience, of the emotion,
Right.
and a sense, as I keep going back to, charisma does a lot. There are very intelligent, capable, competent people, and charisma really helps. You cannot take your eyes off of her, and that's to me the highest compliment of somebody is like, where is she? Where is she? You feel like you cannot take your eyes off of her, and I think that's what's fun. I'm a massive fan. I wish I had known sooner, but I know now.
Well, don't beat yourself up over this, because I dabble in poetry. I actually read the poetry review and all that, but I was not aware of her name either. So
Yeah, I'm excited because I feel like that there's several messages she'll be able to convey, and that to me excites me. Which is turn more people onto poetry. She'll be able to awaken more people in regards to the topic of you've got to pay closer attention to racism, whether it's overt or whether it's subliminal. You've got to pay more attention, and you've got to pay more attention to inclusion, and it's done in a way that, as I said, it's like she just draws you in.
I must say her type of poetry, the topics that she treats is engaged. It's not poetry like up in the clouds, sort of poetry, but abstract subjects. It's very concrete.
And as I said, I think it's with any, to me, with any person that is delivering messages, whether in entertainment, because there is an aspect. I mean, Amanda is an entertainer too, and so
exactly,
it's presence and charisma. I'll draw an example, which is, so yes, same game, and I brought it up, the halftime entertainment. So The Weeknd has had 5 #1 singles, 3 #1 albums. So the rationale for having him do the show was easily justified. He's drawing the numbers. He's got the fan base, and more than just a phantom hit. He spent $7 million of his own money.
Yeah,
there was so much tech going on in that show, but the engagement to me just isn't there, and it goes back to me, not everybody can play an 80,000 seat stadium. Amanda Gorman can, with no $7 million of theatrics going around her. She can do it just by standing there. And I think that's the thing. I don't think it's the fault of The Weeknd. It's simply an engagement thing, and commanding huge audiences. That's where, again, with Amanda Gorman, I'm like, oh my God, she can draw. You cannot take your eyes off her. She has it, and that it is what's going to help her carry a message that's really important.
Right. And for us, for many Latin Americans, my generation and probably even younger, poetry has always been important. I mean, the literary club was more important when I went to high school than the football team. So
see, I love knowing this, and this is stuff that I don't, even with my own. As I said, I'm grateful that my cultural base has expanded. I don't know this, and this to me makes me happy. I used to treat it like Shakespeare. Oh, the play this year is going to be Shakespeare, and I would literally roll my eyes like, oh. So it speaks more of me and the shallowness that I've had to go past.
Come on,
I love that, you know.
You're not shallow. It's amazing to see somebody like that, a poet, so having such an impact. You know, in Latin America, a lot of poets, like say Pablo Neruda, I'm sure you know his name, had a tremendous impact in not only in Chile, which was his land, but all over the continent and all over the world, actually, because he was a world-known poet, having received the Nobel Prize.
So let me give you an example of, to me, why a person like Amanda Gorman is so important. And it's not necessarily her age or the profile or the timing. For me, yesterday there's a couple of examples that I can give. So everyone is waiting. I don't think, the commercial came on fairly late in the second half, from a man who is, I think, 71 at this point. So I was going to say, so Bruce Springsteen does the commercial for Jeep, and the topic and the theme,
which was a great commercial.
It was great.
I want to talk about it, but we are going to take a brief pause.
Cool.
In Usa la Media, the Roundtable, la Mesa Redonda. Estamos en una conversación con John DUFFIN about what is going on in Washington, about what's going on around the world, and the impact of a very young poet. Estamos en Usa la Media, les habla Fernando Méndez, Dani Ramos controlando la máquina digital.
For 10 seconds and then you're one more time.
Señores oyentes de Usa la Media, están escuchando la Mesa Redonda de Roundtable desde la ciudad del amor fraternal, from the city of brotherly love. Les habla Fernando Méndez. John DUFFIN is my special guest today, and Danny Ramos is controlling proceedings here. So we'll continue with our conversation, and John was rudely interrupted by me when he was talking about poetry and commercials and John Springsteen.
And Bruce Springsteen. Look, first off, if I had a nickel for every time I was rudely interrupted, I'd have a lot of nickels. I think it's mostly because I just talk too much and too long. But, so I just get, all right, so Super Bowl. This second, I just got an email announcement. Like, one of the things that I have to remember, that all of the things in regards to the halftime entertainment, I literally just got an announcement from the Wells Fargo Center email to me, an email alert saying the weekend national tour on sale at 10 a.m. Friday. And I have to remember that that's really all that this is it's the 15 minutes to hope that you will buy the national tour in his case, 2022. Will I? Probably not. But the fact of the matter is, he did everything to support the argument that you would go see him in concert in 2022. And back to the matter at hand, what you were saying. One of the things that I find fascinating is there's people that are conduits in regards to conveying messages. I don't know, honestly, if I would have bought a Jeep as a result of the Bruce Springsteen commercial. I certainly wasn't thinking, oh, right, Jeeps are great. In fact, I just read that the only reason he agreed to do it, they've been on him for 10 years, was that the agreement of the terms was the ad would be broadcast one time and one time only, never again. And secondly, that He had 100% creative control, and the Jeep that you saw in the background was his old 1980s Jeep that was pushed back in the corner. And that was why there was no context of Jeep. But away from all of that, he was conveying a message, the message of the middle, less polarization from left and right. I do fall prey to that. I am liberal. I am someone will lean and follow more in that direction. If I have to make a choice, it's typically a left choice. But in my mind, when I talk to people, I typically will say I am liberal, veering closer to moderate. So when you have somebody trying to convey a message, whether it is 18-year-old or Amanda Gorman or 71-year-old Bruce Springsteen, it's not the age or the time. He had a message, and that, to me, that message was really powerful. It was another wake-up call. And I felt like in the midst of the Doritos ads or the Bud Light ads, that it was great.
It was great. It's a good message of unity, and ends up with the reunited states.
Right.
That's the message. And I think it makes sense at a time in which there's such deep division. And so we can talk about that, John, because that's one of the roles, one of the goals, objectives of the GOP during Trump is to divide the country. Divide and conquer, literally divide and conquer. And so here we are because of that intransigence, that refusal to admit defeat, that desire to impose his will. He actually thought he bought his own magic potion, and he thought that he was running a reality show, but from the White House.
1000% agreed. Not to mention, the alarming fact to me is I had dismissed his magic powers long before he took office in 2017. Long before I dismissed his magic powers. I dismissed his magic powers at the time of his election. I dismissed those magical powers all through the term, and even as it was the only time I started to wake up as to that sense of ugly power was close to the election, because I kept thinking something ugly is going to happen. Did I have any idea as to what? No. I just remember being scared. And that was the first time I thought, no, he has something. There is something. Believe me, it's not something I wanted. It's not something I believed in, but he had something. And then you watch the manifestation on January the 6th of what he had. I think I read correctly. So far, they've got 180 cases, investigations. I think they've got 180 so far, active investigations of criminal investigations. And
actually, they have more, John. The latest report from
please.
MSNBC this morning was 240.
Got it, great.
240 arrests, and so those are the number of cases.
Yeah, and you know what? And I'm hoping it's a whole lot more. There was a whole lot more than 240 that were on those steps.
Absolutely.
And so I'm rooting for every single one. My thought is that it's what I would say was that the ramifications of that ugliness, the ramifications of the fact that there are still puppets and conveyors of that ugly dividing message, to me, is why I think it's really difficult that we all form in the middle. It's going to be really easier said than done, because there's certain things that have occurred that I'm just not going to accept. I'm just not. I'm not going to be, well, that's just your point of view. If it's policy, I've got a lot of conservative friends, and I like that. if it's a personal sense of I like so and so better than I, you know, that's okay. The ugly division, violence, these ramifications, I don't accept, and I won't accept, and that's why it's going to be harder for me to veer back toward the middle. Yet I still have those frayed edges and jagged nerves of what has taken place, and then you still watch it in terms of certain individuals that are literally cavorting around Washington right now.
Right. I disagree completely with Lindsey Graham, who says let's move on.
No,
Um,
not yet.
Not yet. No. I think the whole Trump mentality has to be exposed,
Absolutely.
examined, and he has to be on the record. He has to be on the record. And I think that's what the Democrats want to do. Put him on the record. All
Yeah.
this has to be for the sake of our history, even if he's not impeached in the Senate.
Right. Which I
even
don't
if he's
think he
not
will be.
guilty.
I don't think there's a chance in the world that's going to go through.
Right.
But I think
We
you go
don't-
through the process anyway.
We don't have 17 Republican senators with a conscience.
No.
And has been evident for the last 4 years, that there's only a handful of them that have a conscience, that can be objective. And so I don't think that the numbers are there for the final verdict on Donald Trump here, which should be guilty as charged. And he should not be able to serve in a public office in the future. Okay, and that brings me to another point.
Right.
Now, Ivanka Trump is making noises that she could come back and revive her national career and become a viable political entity.
And here's the horrible news. She could, because you get to pick your spots. So, for instance, if I read correctly, she would be running in Florida.
In Florida. Right.
So it's because you get to literally pick your spot. And as you watch, I'm sorry, this is not new news, but it just becomes more and more clear because everything is now so transparent, like some awful reality show, game show, which is there's two reasons you are taking office now. And as I said, this has gone on since the beginning of time, which is it's not to help and serve people. It just isn't. It's now power, fame, and attention. And the people that are there and I'm not saying this is every political candidate, I promise you I don't feel that way, but for the wrong ones, they see this. This is power, fame, and more attention or celebrity.
Don't forget profit.
Oh, well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm sorry. And I 1,000% when I'm saying power, I'm 1,000% agreed. And that's, to me, the ugly part. So Ivanka Trump got a taste of more power, profit, and fame. And now
the family of grifters. It's a family of grifters, this whole Trump family.
Every single one. Every single one. It's even the one daughter that from from Marla Maples, I never could think of her name, is like engaged to some billionaire. So it's amazing to me that the grifters all have come out, it feels like almost unscathed, which is why I believe all of this needs to be exposed.
Yeah, I don't blame you for not knowing her name, because I don't think even Donald Trump knew her name. Her name
She
is
was
Tiffany.
typically 10 down from when they do a photo op. She was typically 10 people down. But what I would say is that it's so ugly because that's why, as you just said earlier, and I agree with you, you have to go through the process. This has to be exposed. It has to be known, and the details have to come out, because otherwise you get the other grifters to just start populating places. So she becomes, I'll make it up, governor or senator of somewhere in Florida, or, and then you'll see one of the other two lunkhead boys decide they want to do something, and you just can't. You got to get them, all of them, get them out. The rough part is she just goes where she knows she'll win.
Yeah, well, but that's way ahead.
Yeah, and I think there's so much more good that comes before that. That's my hope, anyway.
And my hope too, and my hope was when Biden got elected that we would stop talking about Donald Trump. But here we are because there is this trial in the Senate.
Yep.
With obviously, okay, the danger there is that he will come out again out of this saying, look, they have tried one more time. I am innocent of all this. I am a great leader. This is all vengeance from the Democrats. It's the same thing again.
Oh.
But the difference is the record. It will be on the record. It will be video. It will be his voice and his image on the record.
Oh, that's why you have to go through with it. You've got, speaking of grifters, non-family member grifters, the Marjorie Taylor Greene's walking around with her mask of the day that it was some ugly, awful message. So the rough part is his ugliness not just permeates through that immediate family and the in-laws and Kushners, and it permeates beyond. And these attention-seeking, money-seeking, like I said, non-family grifters feel as if they can run the school. And that's what really is the ugly part. Well, what you call it, you've got people pandering to the former president in Florida and visiting him, and whether it's Lindsey Graham or the Republican alleged leader or the other one, as I said, with her mask. I don't even like saying their names because I feel as if any of them, that it gives them more justification for that attention. So I almost refuse to say it. It's not that I don't know them. I don't want to acknowledge them because I feel that's what this is all about. I need more attention. I need more power. I need more fame. I need more profit, like you said.
This Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, I really wasn't going to say her name, but you got it. Oh, you got it.
She deserves special treatment.
Oh, and by special, it's like right. But as you see, this is what I noticed. I remember, and by the way, I think this came up the last time I was lucky enough to be on your show, where we were talking about the polarization, and it wasn't her specifically. I can catch that I still won't say her name, but the fact is that the polarization, that it gets to the point where this side and this side are treating it like WWE wrestling. There can be no middle. There is bad people, and the bad people get attention, and there's the good people, and they get attention, and so you've got this almost clown-like reality show situation going on where, and I'll say it, Marjorie Taylor Greene feels like the best way she can get attention now is lean into it. Now she's like, okay, people are still covering me at press conferences. People are still covering me on television. So why not? I'm just going to go in and lean in. And she gets attention. She gets camera coverage. She gets fame. And I believe she ignites that horrifically, or keeps that horrifically ugly voter base in play.
Yeah, that's a shame. But now she has no duties, and she's proud of the fact that she has no obligations in Congress, and therefore she's free. She's a free agent to float around and spew more ignorance.
Yeah, and as the cameras are still there, the attention is still there. The pictures are taken as she's walking down the hall of Congress or the hall of the Capitol building. The cameras are still going. So she's doing something that, at least in her mind, is working, which is she commands attention everywhere she goes. And that, the frightening thing is, I used to think, oh, well, nobody's paying attention to that. Or maybe it's a handful of people. As we learned in November, it's not a handful of people. It's not. So we talked about earlier today, these are people with degrees. These are people that you may know. These are people that are in your circle. And she gets it. And that's the part that's so ugly and wrong and the problem with the division right now.
Yeah, it's beyond the pale. We should not spend any more time on this.
No.
This.
But I think here's the thing. Here's the one thing that I would say that I do believe, which is the ugliness needs to be brought to light. I believe that. I believe that people thinking it could be or it might be, but that was part of the problem. Oh, they're not that bad. Well, they are that bad, and
They
you
are
need to
that
know
bad.
and you need to see it.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that all these QAnon conspiracies have seen the light of day and have received attention from anybody, but apparently they have.
Hey, Fernando, can I ask you? And you don't. I don't mean to name names, but do you know anybody that is a believer?
Yeah, not
too.
not in QAnon, but I mean I know people who are believers in Donald Trump.
Yeah. Here's what I was going to say. I could take it a step further. I know a couple of people that
Yeah,
are believers. They'll never admit it. They'll never say I am a Q. They'll never do that. But I know a couple of people that what they are posting and speaking and saying is exactly the QAnon stuff, is exactly it. And as I said, it's not for me to name names or pass judgment, but it's, to me, the killer is it's closer than you think.
yeah. And as I said before, I know a lot of smart people, professionals,
Right.
who believe that, and I do not understand how that's possible.
No.
I could be, okay, I understand Mitch McConnell because he put his conscience aside for the sake of power.
Yeah.
I
And like you
understand.
said, profit. And as you said, profit. It is a very profitable job that he's got.
Right. But these are the people, lawyers, doctors, professionals who believe that this is true, that there was the election was stolen.
Oh.
How is that possible?
That's the
And
question I wish I could answer. How is that possible? I
Right.
really wish I could answer that, Fernando. God Almighty. I can't answer it, and I'm still in disbelief in regards to, for God's sake, I don't know. And I know people on that side, and I don't know. And I remember right after the election, a colleague of mine called me, and they were going to put together a panel in regards to literally trying to bring, let's all get back together. And I actually, the day after the election, right? I actually was, oh no, forgive me, no. Yeah, it was the day after the election, before the insurrection, the day after the election. And I remember thinking, I'll do that. I think it's important. I'll do that. And then the insurrection comes. And then the continued sense of trying to propagate that complete lie. And I was like, no, I'm not going to come. I'm not going to come to middle ground with that story. To me, the only way I deal with that story is eradicate it. It doesn't exist. It isn't real. And the lawsuits that are breaking right now, I really believe will help. I really believe there's going to be something here. The multi-billion-dollar lawsuits, I think, are really going to help.
finally, yes, because I could not understand how Giuliani and that other woman who followed him everywhere, how could they continue? Sidney Powell is her name.
That's
And
exactly
how
right.
could they continue all over the country with fake lawsuits? No?
You're getting paid, or you think you're getting paid. I thought I had read in one publication that Rudy Giuliani was having a hard time getting paid by the Trump organization, and it's like, get in line. There's a lot of people over a lot of years. Go back to Atlantic City, for God's sake. Go back to New York, of people that just don't get paid. My sense is they believed that they were going to get paid, number one, that they would, if they were able to get this billion-dollar situation, that they would be able to profit from that. And they're not, and they won't.
Yeah, we're going to be taking a break
Sure.
in a few seconds, but I want to point out that famous video of Giuliani with
Oh, with the hair and,
with
and the shoe polish. I mean, I'm sorry, not with the hair. The shoe polish.
polish sort of melting in public, and he by then he'd lost everybody.
Lost his mind, let alone lost the case,
Yeah,
lost his mind. Literally, and when they use the expression imploded, that to me should be the visual of every time they say the word, oh, they imploded. Watch the shoe polish come running down your face. And
taking a break here.
No.
Taking a break, John.
Oh,
Estoy
good.
escuchando Usa la Media, The Roundtable, La Mesa Redonda. Les habla Fernando Méndez. John Duffin is my guest, and we return
Gotcha.
in 1 minute.
Because of you, I feel not alone in this world. And you let me know that it only takes one person to make you feel wanted.
Okay, gentlemen, we're gonna go back in, okay?
Great.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Señores oyentes de USA la Media, estamos de nuevo aquí en la Mesa Redonda de Roundtable desde el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal. Les habla Fernando Méndez. John Duffin is my guest, and we are talking about Washington, and we're talking about COVID. So, John,
Yes.
let's switch to the theme of COVID, because
Of course.
there is a vaccine now, which is that's a light at the end of the tunnel. And in fact, there are several vaccines, some more effective than others. Apparently, the one AstraZeneca is not effective against the South African version of COVID. So apparently they have stopped using it in South Africa.
Right.
But we have other ones. Johnson and Johnson apparently is a very good vaccine.
Moderna, Pfizer being the other two. That's,
Moderna and Pfizer, right? So that's the promise of the future. Because why are we here? Why are we so far behind, John?
Well, great question. I wish I knew. I'll give you some, for instance. I believe that polarization, and you brought up Washington, I believe that is so. There's an old adage to me of somebody quits a job and you're taking over the person that quit the job. Typically, there's a nice touch of a couple of weeks before you get an idea of what that person was doing. But if it's a disgruntled employee or an incompetent one, they don't let you in prior, which to me is exactly what happened in Washington. This has been a complete mess all the way through. And it was being promoted for attention-seeking profit fame. And so, get me reelected from the former president. So look what I did. And then it didn't happen. And it's like, you know what? Well, then tough. So no one gets to see what's going on. The Biden administration comes in and gets literally dealt this ridiculously ugly deck of cards where you come to that realization, oh my God, the former employee didn't do anything. Oh my God, there's nothing but a pile of papers on the former employee's desk, and they haven't done anything in 6 months or 4 years in this case. And so now everyone's scrambling. Look, I just found it for myself personally. It was the first time. I'm not quite of the age, and I remember I absolutely want the vaccine. I have a 91-year-old mom. I am one of 5 kids. And my mom is, thank God, healthy and of great mindset too. But as we each go over to look out for my mom, I don't want to be the one giving my mom COVID. So I've got family members that have had it, friends that have had it. Someone in the elevator of my building this morning is telling me they had it, it wasn't that bad, of which I would say Yeah. And for some people that I know, it was really bad. So it has been a dice roll. I am now, I'm talking to my primary doctor 2 days ago. I'm not quite of the age. And he said, well, I should be able to move you up based on your weight. For the first time, right? So for the first time in my life, I'm like leaning in. Oh my God, he's calling me old and fat. Good. Uh, I'm like running marathons before. Now I'm like, no, more donuts. But it's like, oh, please get everybody in line. Get every first responder. Get every hospital worker. And this is where I'll be a little less selfish. Get every elderly person. Get every teacher. Get every. I don't need to run to the front of the line. I just want it.
Yeah, I was part of a chain of texts where people were complaining that more men were getting the vaccine than women, and then there was a report that in Philadelphia, 2 out of 3 people receiving the vaccine are women. So
Wow. See, I wasn't following the gender distribution. Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't following that.
yeah,
I was following more the age and the category. Well, and in the city of Philadelphia, the craziness with firing the organization, and then the questions as to, well, why is that organization even doing it in the first place? So,
but no, around the country, John, actually,
right.
it's like 60 to 62% more women than men receiving the vaccine.
Got it.
But it stands to reason. Think of the people who are receiving the vaccine now, the front line of COVID, all the nurses and doctors and
Right.
the medical profession, especially the nurses, is a profession populated by women. The other people who need it right now, teachers, again, women. And so it stands to reason that there are more
Yeah.
women in the vaccine.
And I will gladly give up my place in line, gladly, so that every teacher is vaccinated.
Yeah. But you don't have a
That's
place, John, you don't have a place now, so you're not offering anything really.
no. Well, I was told I may be able to get moved up, and I'm taking it. But you're right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just I'm not going to complain. Put it that way. I
Yeah.
won't complain or whine if teachers are getting it. They should. They're the ones that are really putting their health and their family's health on the line right now.
Yes, but the thing is, it's one of those things that promises to actually put an end to this because COVID has ruined not only the health of the nation, it had ruined the economy, not only of this nation but around the world. So the sooner we can put an end to this, the sooner we'll recover, and that is obviously how Biden and his people are looking at this too.
Well, there's an incredible sense of urgency that's going on right now, and you can feel it. You and I both are privileged enough to be living in one of the largest cities in the United States, and maybe, you know what I mean, like in terms of world population, what I would say is you see it and you feel it in Center City, Philadelphia, and as I'm a resident, and that sense of, oh my God, how much longer can these businesses, retail outlets, restaurants, what have you, which you have to have them to get people to want to continue to live in these metropolitan areas. And then you think of the office buildings, that there's this ridiculous amount, I mean, in a good way, of office space in Center City, Philadelphia, and any major metropolitan city in the United, like New York and Chicago, and the fact of the matter is, everybody's working from home right now. So why am I paying these exorbitant rents? And then what do we do with all the empty space? And that's, to me, it's not just the health of the nation. It's not just the economic factor. It's the psyche of the nation, too. What the hell are we going to do?
Yeah, well, I think as soon as the recovery gets underway, a lot of stuff will come back to normal. I mean, I know there are some people who discovered that they can, businesses that can work from home efficiently, and they will
Right.
probably continue to do that. But the ones who have always used offices traditionally, they will go back to that. Many of them, in fact, many employees who discovered working at home was okay, will be happy to go back and socialize. That's one important part of the office work.
Right.
Is socialization, the easy exchange of ideas in the workplace, and that is not happening right now. So
Yeah, and I feel that too. I always was a customer. I traveled a lot for work, but I also did really not only enjoy, I needed the collaboration. And yes, I can collaborate on Zoom or go to webinar or whatever the platform, StreamYard or whatever the platform, but that sense of real connection, I dearly, dearly miss it. And so behind me, I record, I do all my voice work, I have a full-on home recording studio. But yeah, I miss it. I want to see people again. I want to feel the interaction.
yeah, and that will happen. I think they should make a concerted effort to vaccinate every teacher, and let's get that.
Every. I
Then
just
we
read a
can
couple
open
of
the schools.
every get the schools open, but not before you get the teachers protected. The teachers, as I said, I don't believe in making teachers vulnerable. I don't, and so no, every teacher gets back vaccinated. I stand with the teachers that to just throw them into a classroom because parents are getting rammy. That is to me wildly unacceptable. They have to be protected and then bring the kids back to school safely.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake by this woman doctor, head of the CDC or NIH, one of those agencies, who said in public that the teachers should go back, and because there's no big contagion in schools, but that's not true.
God,
I mean,
it's so not true.
You
And I could give you real life examples of cases where kids were giving people in my circle, adults, COVID, and they paid a heavy price. That is so untrue.
Yeah, so maybe kids are not affected, but they certainly.
That's it. But the teachers would be.
Are carriers, yeah. I was a teacher for a long time, as you know, at St. Joe's
Yeah,
Prep.
absolutely.
And every September, I would catch a cold.
Sure.
Because that was the beginning of school year.
Until and the kids don't. And the kids are fine. But this is one of the problems that I've seen with this whole situation is that you get really singular and polarized with how things are going to go. Like, for instance, someone just said to me, and I mean today, who I know, and I know him, and I also know that he has been really cool and smart and protected, wearing a mask, and immediately said, hey, it was okay for me. It was I had it. It was all right for me.
I got to do the YouTube.
And then you get that sense of, are you saying it's okay for everybody? And my thought is, it's okay for you. Good, great, but it isn't okay for everyone. So you can't make this mass decision that it was all right for me, and so everyone else is going to react the same. As I'm learning, if it gets into your lungs, if it gets into your throat or your lungs, it's a much different and dangerous situation than if it just is a cold and flu.
Well, let's hope that now here we are, John. It's a more rational government. We don't have to fear every day that we're going to create more enemies around the world. That we're going to be embarrassed that there's some new horror that happened during the night via Twitter.
Every night you're worried. Every night you're worried something was going to go awry.
So we're back to normal. I'm actually getting some good sleep.
Ain't it crazy? That's right. Here's my concern. It's a longer range concern, which is, are we going to then keep a government that the winning party does nothing but write their own executive orders? and so right. You have to hope in these 4 years, or hopefully, 8 years. Oh, and then 8 more when Kamala Harris goes. You gotta hope. Right. You gotta hope that people can accept this, because if they don't, and you get the polarizing crowd that's wandering around right now between the grifters that we talked about earlier, the opportunists that's still there, that when they come into power, do they just unwrite and then write their own rules? And that's, to me, the biggest concern. It's great for now. I love the current administration, but you've got to bring some sense of community or togetherness, because otherwise, the next time the other side's in, they just start writing their own policies.
On that note, John, we're gonna have to end here. We left we left a lot of topics on the desk.
Oh my God, Nata, you made this great for me, man.
So you have to come back,
and I will,
because we need.
I'd be honored.
We need to do. You can come back tomorrow. You want to come back tomorrow? We'll do the rest of the agenda. If you have time, let me know.
I will, and it'll be soon. I promise you that.
And
It's great.
Thank you, John. Thank you for being with us today. Amigos oyentes, han escuchado la mesa redonda de Roundtable desde el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal. Les habló Fernando Méndez, John Duffin, my guest, and Dani Ramos, controlando la máquina digital. Los esperamos hasta la próxima.
Saludos amigos, los invitamos a escuchar la mesa redonda de Roundtable, donde discutimos los temas del día, hablando de política, educación y otros temas locales, regionales y mundiales, por USA la Radio.